This morning I'm doing a tour of my 2019 summer garden. This here is my pollinator bed that I created last year in hopes of bringing over some pollinators, beneficial insects, the bees, the butterflies, hummingbirds. This was originally a wooded area which was very unruly. So as you can see, there's a lot of landscaping fabric around, which my husband and I have been working on putting down to suppress some of the unwanted weeds. In my pollinator bed, I have some bee balm, rudbeckia or black-eyed Susan, some Shasta daisy, some powwow pink coneflower, some creme brulee coreopsis. This was some cerise queen yarrow, but as the season progresses and it starts to die down, it turns from a pink, similar to the phlox on the side of it, to this faded white color. In the back, I'm growing some cosmos. My Vavo used to grow a lot of these when I was growing up, and they remind me of her. So this year I threw some seeds down in the garden, and those were just sowed in the ground directly, so they're just now starting to kind of come into bloom. I also have a climbing Clematis in the back. That one is called La Presidente, and it's a beautiful deep purple. This is only the second year that I've had it planted here, so my hope is that eventually it will sprawl throughout this whole fence and cover it in those beautiful purple blooms. So maybe in a couple more years. This year I planted this sea holly, which is beautiful. It's almost like an electric violet lilac color. I'm hoping that next year it'll be even bigger. This was only the first year that it's been in the ground. This was a bare root bulb, so I'm surprised anything even came up at all. As you can tell, there's a lot of weeds in this bed, so I'm still trying to figure out how to keep, I'm hoping that the more perennials I have in here, eventually it'll crowd out all the weeds, and this will just be full of blooms from spring through fall. And in the corner here, I have some zinnia that was also direct sowed, and they're just now starting to bloom. This bird bath that I'm going to clean up today, and I got a stone paver so that I can hopefully level it off some. But these seem to get really dirty quickly. I think that if they're in the sun, the algae kind of builds quickly, and they're hard to maintain. But I'm going to figure out how to do that. I've heard that if you throw some pennies in there, older pennies prior to a certain year have some copper components in it, and it helps keep the algae at bay. So we shall see. So that's the pollinator bed. The bee balm is now finished as well, and that actually spread quite nicely over the last year. And I'm hoping to be able to get some more divisions off of that soon. So let's go into the garden now. This is about the third year that I've had this garden in place. My husband built it for me as a Mother's Day gift a couple of years ago, and I love it. It did have a little more sun when we initially built it, but I think that's because we built it in the spring before all these trees had a chance to fill out their canopies. So I think that this fall we might have to sacrifice this tree here. As you can see, the sun's kind of trying to peek through behind it. And so if I lost this one tree, it'll open up a lot of sun, morning sun to the garden. It does get a solid 6 hours of sun from about maybe noon on, but it definitely could get a lot more. And I can tell where the sun hits because on the side of these arches, on the right-hand side, my vines are climbing beautifully and growing and thriving. And on the left-hand side, they're only about maybe getting to be about 2 feet tall at this point, and they should really be more advanced at this stage. We're in the last week of July here. It'll actually be August, the end of the week, so they're definitely behind. I don't know that I'll even ever get a harvest off of these. I believe this is butternut squash, which is a bummer because we do love butternut squash. And I also have some sugar baby watermelons in here. I have some flowers that are waiting to be pollinated, but I don't know if we'll actually ever get any fruit. But I guess we'll see. Over here we have some corn, which I mostly planted for fun for my boys. They're not huge fans of veggies, but if I do plant some things that they take interest in, I'm hoping that it'll maybe turn them around. But again, this was only sowed maybe in June at some point, so I know they say knee-high by 4th of July, but I don't know that hopefully we'll get something. But again, it's pretty shady in this corner. I think if we're getting more sun, that maybe it would help these sort of grow quicker. Tomatoes. I have some with a tag that tells me what they are, but I don't know what happened to some of the other tags, but I'll have to get some better tagging systems for next year. But they are growing pretty well. Some of them have split at the bottom. I think it might have been a little bit from inconsistency of watering earlier on in the season. I did go ahead and put on a timer, so now they've been getting more consistently watered. But I don't know, it could just be the variety. You know, some of the bottoms seem like they cracked a little bit. But hopefully most of the tomato is still good enough to enjoy. I'm guessing that in the next month they'll all start ripening up and turning red as they should. And we can get to enjoy some of those. I planted about 14 tomato trees, tomato plants, 12 of them regular large-sized tomatoes. See how this one is a little bit odd here? It's not focused. There we go. Yeah, so I'm not sure what exactly took place here. Another tomato here with some funky bottoms. It doesn't look like blossom end rot because when I touch it, it's not soft, and most of the tomato has developed just fine. So have to cut that away, I guess. But as I was saying, I planted about 14 tomato plants, 12 of them full-size tomato slicers, and 2 of them, 2 or 3 of them are about a cherry tomato variety. Yeah, this appears to be a cherry tomato variety that only a little bit filled out. So this bed here is definitely getting shaded. I can tell by the growth pattern on the plants. So hopefully next year it'll be a little bit better. So here we have some more cherry tomatoes. That cluster is quite full. I'm just waiting for it to ripen up. So who knows when that will be. I'm really hoping in the next couple of weeks. Really looking to making some Portuguese tomato soup soon. And nothing better than fresh garden tomatoes, am I right? My lettuce looking a little sad. I'm hoping that I'll have better luck with a fall planting of lettuce. Some borage and a baby bee on the borage. How cute is she? Or he? Boys and girl bees? Yeah, queen bee, I guess so, right? Peppers. These are all flowering beautifully. I'm just hoping that they'll put out some fruit. Some of them are already creating fruit. So as you can see there, I have some jalapenos. I have some type of cherry type tomato growing back there. And some bell peppers. So these are starting to come into their own. Peppers do much better in the heat. So now that the temps have been warming up and we're in the middle of summer, the later portion of summer now, I suppose. Actually, no, because summer started only like a month ago. So let's just say we're in maybe midsummer. And they seem to be definitely liking the heat and picking up. So those are all my peppers. I have, I believe, 12 pepper plants. I plant a lot and I don't always get the best harvest, which is really disappointing. And I really do think it has a lot to do with the amount of light that I'm getting in here. And so I'm working on figuring that out. But those tomatoes are quite tall. Those are 8 feet fairing strips. And they are the first tomato on the bed there is a cherry tomato, and that one's already right at the top. I don't know that I'll be able to tie it up anymore because I'm only 5'4". So I might have to top that one up. Top it off, cut it off the top, and just let it kind of do its thing up until that height. But the other ones still have a couple of feet to grow. So they must be probably a solid 5 feet tall at this point, 5 to 6 feet. about 5, a solid 5 feet, maybe a little bigger. So this middle bed is doing a lot better because it's getting sun from this side. But the first bed there is definitely getting shaded by that tree. So I'm hoping I can cut that down with my husband this fall. So here we have our cukes. I direct sowed cucumbers because I only had enough space under grow lights for tomatoes and peppers and eggplant, which definitely take a lot longer to get started. So I'm glad that I indoor started those, but it means that I'm a little behind on the cucumbers. We have lots of flowers here. And it's growing up the trellis great. But again, this is the side that's getting less light, although this bed is getting more than the first bed. So I plant so many plants, and I don't think my problem is overcrowding. I just think I really have a light situation in here. And so I should be getting a lot more harvest than what I'm getting. I always have this grand dream of getting so much fruit and vegetables that I can actually put out a little table in my front yard and have all the neighbors grab things, or the passerbyers, but I haven't gotten there yet. So I'm about 5 years into gardening, 3 years into having this garden space, and I'm hoping that I'll eventually get there, but we shall see. So here are the cucumbers. Like I said, I direct sowed these, so I only did that maybe around the first week of June. So now we're in the end of July, and they're literally just picking up now. Lots of flowers. So I'm hoping that the honeybees are coming by to pollinate, or the bees in general, and that we will have some cukes. And if I poke a peek down at the bottom, I definitely see some baby cucumbers, more on the other side than this side, but I have seen some. So there's a baby lemon cucumber. And let's see if I can find you, or find me, because I would be excited to find some cucumbers. Let's go digging. Find some babies in here. Ah, there's a couple. So there's 1, 2, 3. So if I dig a little bit more, I hope that I could find bunches like this. So the cucumbers are just picking up for me. I have 2 varieties. I have regular Marketmore and bunching cucumbers. Bush cucumber types rather, and I also have some lemon cukes in here, which are like round yellow cucumbers that are super cute. They don't taste much like lemon. They taste like a regular cucumber, but they look like a lemon, which is cool. So here I have some winter squash and some delicata squash. So far I've only been able to spot some winter squash. There's 1, 2, I think there's another baby coming out there. Hopefully it gets properly pollinated. This one I can tell did not get pollinated. It's about to break off. See? Lack of pollination, that's what they look like. Let me throw them away for the birds. But yeah, so I have 2 varieties of squash going up this trellis. Here's another baby. So I'm hoping that this side will be the delicata. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. It does already look like it has a different characteristic than the winter squash. So fingers crossed. Here's another baby. It's not focusing. Where is it? It's, well, it's hard to film with the phone, but there's another baby. Take my word for it. So here we have some crazy unruly strawberries, which I have to do something about this. Originally my plan was for this to be a berry bed, but my mistake was that I planted these raspberries, blackberries here, and raspberries there. The birds got most of my raspberries, so that was a rookie mistake. I should have put some netting over them. But I also have 2 small blueberry shrubs here, which are overcrowded. So now my plan is to move the raspberries and blackberries out of this garden space and plant them somewhere on the outskirts of my actual woods, because I figure they can get wild as they want out there, and then I'll always be able to pick some fruit. But in here I have limited space, so I want to be able to grow things that I need to grow in a controlled environment. And so I will keep my strawberries in here. So my plan is to just make this whole 3/4 of this bed strawberries and just keep my 2 blueberries over to the end. And raspberries and blackberries are getting kicked out. I had this earth grow box that I just threw 2 pumpkin plants in, mostly for my boys for fun, but as you can tell, they are a flop. They're not doing anything, and what's happening is that the strawberries, this was only 4 strawberry plants that I was able to divvy up when I took them out of their containers to plant, and look how much they've grown. They're huge. But the earth grow box that I threw the 2 pumpkins in, no good. The strawberries are overtaking that. So here's the back end view of my arched trellis that I put in this year with some cattle panels. And this is some, so I think in the back is the delicata, and in the front I put the winter squash, or known as spaghetti squash. So that plant looks healthy, and fingers crossed we're able to get a decent harvest from that. Okay, a lot of flowers that have been waiting to get pollinated. Okay, some are still open and some are closing up. Here I have some scarlet runner beans. Now these would be beautiful on one of these trellises, and so next year I know that I certainly want to put them on a arch trellis, because these little flowers are so dainty but really pretty, and they add a little pop of color as I'm walking toward the garden. On the other side I have some eggplant plants, and these, I forget the name of the variety, but they're like a long skinny eggplant. They're not like the traditional beefy ones that you see that you make like eggplant parm with. So these are great to just throw into a stir fry. And they have these really pretty little purple flowers. Really cute. Let me see if I find an eggplant. Again, 3 plants, and I've only gotten 2 eggplants. So I definitely have a problem with either pollination or sunlight in here. I know I have the watering down because I've been doing it on a timer. But again, for the amount of work I put in, my output is just not great. So if you have any ideas why this happens, I'd be happy to know. See my scarlet runner beans. So these are on 2 tomato trellises at the moment, but I think they would do great on an arch type trellis. They're getting pretty unruly at this point. Cabbage looks pretty sad. I only have 2 thrown in there. I'm going to go around and show you, but they do have some heads forming, so I'm just going to let them go and see what happens. 2 kales. I'm going to throw some more kale down for the fall garden. I do love some kale soup. Another Portuguese traditional soup that's great. Okay, so here are my... What's the bumblebee in there doing their job. So hopefully we get some more fruit off of this plant, some more pollination going on. So these here, I have, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7, okay? I have about 6 or 7 plants in 2 4x4 boxes that I spaced out pretty decently, about 18 inches apart. And I literally have only gotten 4 zucchini so far. 5. I've got my 5th one last night. And I have my first yellow squash about to be ready to pick. Maybe I'll let it go for one more day. I'll give it one more day, but it technically could be picked now. And in fact, the more you pick, supposedly, the better it is, because you'll get more fruit. And there's a baby one coming out right there. Actually, it looks like a twosome. One on top, one on bottom. So hopefully those come through. But yeah, so I have about 7 plants. And again, I did direct sow these, so it could just very well be that they're a little behind. But I have some friends and neighbors who have already been picking zucchini. In fact, their zucchini plants are pretty much done. And now they're moving on to their cucumbers. So, actually, let's go ahead and pick this. So here we go, a yellow squash. First one of the season. So 5 zucchini, 1 yellow squash, direct sowed, 6 to 7 plants around the first week of June. And that's where we're at. I have fertilized twice, once with fish emulsion and once with the Espoma plant plant tone. I love this stuff. If you watch Garden Answer on YouTube, Laura, she does a lot of videos and she uses a lot of espoma, which is a great product. So we have my owl at the end of the walkway there. I was hoping he'd keep the birds away from the berries, but they definitely got most of my raspberries. And they were delicious, the ones I did get. So here's the cabbage I was telling you about. Look how cute that little head is. Like a little Cabbage Patch Kid. So that's super cute. And I have another one back here. So I felt around and I can tell that there's a little head forming. The outside leaves look horrendous because I'm pretty sure they've been attacked by the moths that like cabbage. But I'm hoping that this little cocoon will be okay and I'll be able to harvest a cabbage. So here again are my eggplants. I have 3. And I've been reading a lot about the square foot method, even though I'm not totally on, I don't do the square foot planting by Mel Bartholomew. I don't follow it. But I know that you can definitely plant a little tighter in square foot gardening than you can otherwise. And so I stuck 3 eggplants in this corner here. They each have, like I said, about 12 to 18 inches apart in a triangle formation. But they're either slow to get going or I'm having the, like I said, the pollination or water issue. So here's what those cute eggplants look like. They get to be about maybe 6 inches long and just shy of an inch in diameter. Here's my kale. I have 2 kale plants. I have some purple kale that I'm going to plant soon, hopefully for a fall harvest, but these are doing pretty well. I can probably cut some of these leaves off and use them already before the bugs get to them. But that's it. My watermelon, not doing much. And this, on this side, I have cantaloupe. These are cantaloupes that I have growing on this side. I haven't been able to spot a baby cantaloupe yet, so I don't know what's going on. But I have cantaloupe here, and I have some pole beans. Pole beans are loving this trellis. They're all up in there. But that's it for today. So that's where the garden's at. And today is July 29th or 30th. No, the 30th. Today is Tuesday, July 30th. And this is where the garden's at. And I'll try to do another one of these in a month and see where we are. Hopefully we'll have some ripe tomatoes.